Greetings and welcome to another edition of Radical Grace Radio.
I'm Pastor Gary Held.
My name is Matthew Pancake, and this is episode 821. And Pastor, it stopped raining outside.
What do you know about that?
It's been raining for like a week. I mean, it would rain and then it would stop, and you go, "Oh, that's pretty." Nope, here it comes again. Just tons and tons of rain. But the best part about it was apparently the rain drove away the workers out there on the road, so we have a road again.
Oh, well, for now.
Yeah.
For now. Yeah.
For now. I was joking with Pastor Cookin here a little bit ago. I said, I think what happened was, and anybody that is frustrated with road construction will get this. So I think what happened is they got done sooner and they haven't inconvenienced enough people yet. And it's in the contract. You do not get your bonus unless we get this many complaints. Maybe it's a thing.
Maybe. Yeah. Sounds like a stretch, but okay.
Yeah, well, It is a stretch. I know that they needed to work on this road out here. And I did get to drive on it for a little bit. It was smooth.
There's some roads out here in Monroe, Louisiana that could use a little bit of work. That's for sure.
Yeah.
A little bit like driving on a washerboard in some places.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine. No, I can. Excuse me. There are lots of assisted living facilities around here that you come off of the road, nice smooth road, right onto, it's just like they threw washboards everywhere. Wow. And you don't want to be bumping people around, that's not fun. But I'll tell you what is fun, and that's trying to look at the world through the mind of Christ. Not even just trying. I guess it dawned on me last week. I didn't really get to talk about it. And here's another aspect of this is that if you're in Christ, and, you have the Holy Spirit and you have all of those things, you by default have the mind of Christ. So anytime that it's a habit, I say trying to think with the mind of Christ.
Well, you're learning.
I have the mind of Christ.
Yeah, but here's the problem. When I say you're still learning, you have the ability. That's true. You have the ability. The however is that what becomes your default way of thinking. So your default might be the way that you always were thinking prior, the way that the world taught you how to think. And now you have some unlearning to do. Mm-hmm. And well, that's not just you, that's every Christian. We have to unlearn some of the things that the world has taught us so we can learn the things that are consistent with Christ and his message and his mission. So it's it's unnatural. That's the other thing too.
Right.
It's a very unnatural way.
Because when the natural mind starts thinking, it's strange. It starts sounding unnatural to me, and I'm assuming that that's because of there's an opposition in the mind of Christ. It's like, nope, that's not the way to think about it anymore. You shouldn't. Well,
you catch yourself. That's the thing is that it doesn't happen all the time, but you can catch yourself. Like sometimes you catch yourself thinking, and you say, "Wait a minute." I'm just parroting what the culture says. I don't really believe that. Other times you catch yourself and you go, oh, I think just then the way Jesus looks at the world and people, I think that sort of broke into my consciousness.
Right.
So that's cool now, if you could always make it happen, but But the thing
There's
is,
lots of embarrassing moments where lots of embarrassment. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't think about that until after.
We just learn how to, a bit at a time, grow in the depth of our knowledge of Christ and have that become more and more baked into us. The world had a lot of time, still has a lot of time to try to wire up our brains to think a certain way. Right. And the Holy Spirit is also able to rewire, but you just got to give it that time, to give the Spirit the opportunity to teach us how to think differently. Yeah.
So why don't we rewire some news stories while we're at it?
Well, we could do that. Sure.
Yeah. In fact, that almost sounds like a better title than just saying Christian News Roll, because sometimes it's not strictly Christian that I have in this lineup. Yep.
Not strictly Christian.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go with the news roll. Okay. So on May 20, this is some sad news actually. On May 25th, 24th, yesterday, at the time of recording this, celebrated. She was rock and soul singer Tina Turner passed away peacefully in her residence in Switzerland. I didn't know that's where she was staying. She was 83 years old. Turner, also known as the Queen of Rock and Roll, was renowned for her chart-topping hits such as Proud Mary and What's Love Got to Do with It. Her publicist released a statement confirming her demise and honoring her exceptional career. Fans and fellow musicians worldwide paid homage to Turner's impactful voice and inspiring contributions throughout her multi-decade career. Now, here's the thing this is an aside. I checked this multiple times because the interwebs kept backtracking on the report. No, she's dead. No, she's not. No, it's sad enough that she passed away, but it's another entirely that the web couldn't get the story straight.
Well, yeah. Okay, so, anyway, she certainly in that list of the hits, people would recognize a lot of those songs.
But that's just the two that I threw in there.
So anyway, the number 4 story is that after months of speculation and anticipation, Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis officially launched his presidential campaign on Wednesday. And DeSantis discussed his plans on immigration and cleaning out the federal bureaucracy with hundreds of thousands of listeners as he pitched himself as a candidate to lead our great American nation comeback. Shortly after his presidential run became official, DeSantis discussed his vision for the country and his record as Florida governor in a Twitter space hosted by Twitter CEO Elon Musk and venture capitalist David Sachs. In response to a question that consulted a veiled swipe at former President Donald Trump, who is the current frontrunner for the Republican nomination for president, Iowa-based radio show host Steve Deese asked DeSantis to make an assurance to the American people that you can actually do the agenda that you just articulated when others tweeted about it and talked about it, but then couldn't actually follow through. And DeSantis responded, "Even my worst critics in Florida will acknowledge that when I tell people I'm going to do something, I don't make promises or say I'm going to do something lightly. I've followed through with it. I've thought about it, and I know that I'm going to follow through on what I tell people I'm going to do, and I'm not going to take no for an answer." Okay, well, beyond Trump and DeSantis, the current digital field includes former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, I think I said that, and Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. So,
right, it's the current
bigger field.
Yeah, it's the current GOP field. You said digital field, which I guess is that's sort of a Freudian slip.
Did I really say that? Okay,
yeah, you did. It's okay.
The GOP field, yeah.
Yeah. It's either way. Okay, so the number 3 story is actually I guess you could say it's a feel-good story, but it's kind of unusual because this kind of thing just doesn't really happen that often. A Chinese congregation that escaped persecution has found asylum in America. A congregation, not just a few people. In what is really an extraordinary event, 63 members of the Mayflower Church congregation escaped and fled first to South Korea in 2019 after suffering much religious persecution in the People's Republic of China. Surprise, surprise, right? And in 2022, they moved to Thailand and waited for the UN to grant them refugee status, which would have allowed them to repatriate someplace else. But soon after that, their visas expired. Thailand was basically dragging their feet and extending those. And then Thai police came and arrested all of them. Children, women, all of them. They were then held in an immigration center and faced the risk of being deported back to China. CBN News interviewed Pastor Yongwang Pan, and who heads the Mayflower Church. He expressed concern about their situation and mentioned that he notices the difference between Thai police and Chinese police. If caught by Chinese police, he says, he feared that they would be beaten. He thought about being sent back to China, made him feel desperate, and it would have been much worse for everybody. But that detention got the attention of authorities in the U.S., and they decided to take action at a quicker pace. And according to Pastor Tom Chonkling of China Ministries International, even though the group was arrested and thrown into the immigration detention center, the Lord used that situation to bring attention to their difficult circumstances, and as a result, the U.S. government made a quicker decision to resettle them. Pastor Pan said that he was stunned by God's miraculous intervention, and it is. I was surprised that the Americans said that they had already bought the tickets and that we were to leave immediately. It was sort of impossible. I'm reminded by that verse in Job, and this is why I included this because this is pretty good. I have heard about you, but now I see you. When I got on the plane and left, I felt like I was dreaming. It reminds me that God is the God who is at work, and he will do what he has promised. And the Mayflower Church members received a warm welcome when landing in Dallas, Texas, because that's where there's going to be a Mayflower Church there, a Chinese church planted in America. Imagine that.
Okay. Well,
or replanted, I guess you could say.
The number 2 story is that a gap exists between churchgoers who say they want to take part in a charity effort and those who wind up actually doing so, according to a new report by Lifeway Christian Resource. A report published Tuesday by Lifeway found that 86% of surveyed churchgoers said that they want to serve people, including those outside the church, in order to advance the gospel. Here comes the however. The however is that the report also revealed that 66% of respondents admitted to not having volunteered for a charity, whether affiliated with or separate from their church in the past year. Okay, so of those surveyed, 30% said that they'd volunteered in the past year, while 4% said they needed clarification.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? I can hear him saying
As
that.
a comparison, Lifeway cited a report from the U.S. Census Bureau, which found that 23% of the general U.S. population volunteered with an organization between September of 2020 and September of 2021. So 20% was 23%. Right. Scott McConnell, executive director of Lifeway, explained in a statement included in their report that their survey only focused on volunteering through a group and not on individual actions. Well, Lifeway drew its data from a survey of 1,002 American Protestant churchgoers that was conducted in September of 2022 with a margin of error of plus or minus 3.3%. So that sounds like that's a pretty accurate survey.
Yeah. So what do you mean, have I volunteered? I put that in because we all kind of know that this is real, but now we have numbers to back it up. Now, the number 1 story, and this actually caught me off guard, and people are going to say, oh, it must be super important. Well, it is kind of actually. Lionsgate Television has acquired the global distribution rights for popular Christian TV show, The Chosen. According to a company spokesperson, the show's creator, director, and producer, Dallas Jenkins, sold the distribution rights for all seasons to Lionsgate. He said this: Lionsgate is perfect for us. They're strong and experienced in areas that we're not, but they also understand what's unique about us and will protect that. We'll continue to do what we do best unabated, and they'll expand our efforts with their tremendous distribution team. Here's how. The entertainment company plans to make the acclaimed crowd-funded series available in 600 languages. Now, so far, the show has been translated only into 62 different languages. And that's
only 62.
Only 62. Now, well, that's a comparison, like 62 versus 600. It's like they plan some wide distribution. Lionsgate president and worldwide television distributor Jim Packer said this: the more I learned about The Chosen, the more I wanted to ensure that it is on the best platforms across the globe. It's no surprise that an artfully crafted story about such an important historical figure, unlike anything done before, would be in great demand. And it is. He went on to say this: the multi-season approach has allowed The Chosen to consistently build its audience and generate a unique level of engagement. We're excited by the opportunity to elevate this incredible property to the next level of worldwide recognition and popularity. Chosen has released 3 seasons out of a planned 7. Currently, they're on their 4th. And that is this week's Christian News Roll. Yeah, that caught me off guard because, small production, little TV show, there's all sorts of them all over the internet. And Lionsgate Television comes along and says, yeah, we're very interested in that. And that means money, which means that from here on out, they don't really have to struggle as much as they have. It's not, they wouldn't say struggle because they'd say that they're blessed, but to maintain the level of quality that they've kept in that show season after season.
Yeah.
That's not easy. And it's an expensive. So here comes another miracle, I guess you could put it.
You could. I mean, I haven't watched a whole season of it. I've watched enough episodes to be able to see that they actually do a very good job, at least from a production standpoint. You could quibble about some of the choices they made. Everybody wants to be a Monday morning quarterback, right? Well, yeah. I think that they could have, showed this differently, or I think that they could have emphasized this aspect. Okay, fine,
sure,
go out and make your own show then. If it's that easy. But what I was able to see is that, this is actually pretty good. You start to see that they are doing what they can to be very faithful as to the biblical narratives. So I think that I don't think they're doing a perfect job, but I think that they're doing, a credible job. And I think for somebody who's just getting spun up as far as, what does the Bible actually teach and what do the Gospels have to say about Jesus, I think it makes a kind of rich introduction. That's a good way to put it.
So. Right. And it's not the first time that people have said, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we had X? So, for years, people talked about the Jesus movie, right?
Yeah.
So it's this not super long, but, and it's for the time that it was made, it's a pretty decent movie. And it's been translated into hundreds of different languages, and it's used as an evangelism tool.
Yes.
People go someplace and they say, we're going to show this movie. And, they talk to people in their own language about Jesus, about the gospel. And so that's been a thing. And now in the digital era, they're making this. And 600 languages. That's a lot. And
that does seem like a lot. That's
a lot of voiceovers, a lot of script. I mean, the screenplay has to be rewritten 600 times. And then it's got to be performed. They've got to hire people. They may even use. See, they have an interesting tech that they use. It's sort of AI driven, where they can fix it so that the lip movements of people on screen.
Yes.
You've seen that.
I've seen that.
It's very effective, and they've been using it. Like we would notice because you and I, we see our product in English. So if we watch Chosen, we're going to watch it in English. But apparently, if you watch it in French, it looks like they're speaking French. That's a cool tech, and yeah, imagine that.
I think that, and that's using a tool that is actually available to a lot. I know of, because I've seen his channel, a YouTuber who's demonstrated that technology on his channel. So it's actually affordable, right? He says, I like how he says, and now I'm going to speak to you in Hindi. And you can hear the tone of the voice sounds a little different because it is machine generated. He can't speak Hindi,
right?
But it goes ahead and gives a sentence or two in that language, and all the while his lips are moving in perfect synchronicity with that voiceover. So
right, so that's a thing. 600. That just struck me. Wow,
that almost seems like that's. I mean, I'm not saying that there's ever such a thing as too much, but at a certain point, unless the well, there's the possibility is that the costs or of involved, the more you do this kind of thing and the more the technology helps you, the closer the costs start to go to zero.
Right.
And maybe the difference between doing it in 300 languages and 600 languages is not that much. I don't know.
Yeah, they still have to hire people to play the roles, unless they think they're going to like use AI to do it. AI is pretty good at speaking lines and stuff. It's not perfect, especially considering that this is supposed to be a drama, so there better be some emotions in there. So I think right now the only way you get that is by hiring real actors to real voice actors to do the work. Now, speaking of doing work, see, we've kind of known, like, how many people say, oh, yeah, I think that, like, volunteerism is awesome. Think about all of the work that gets done on the backs of volunteers. We should be thankful for them. Well, so you must volunteer all the time. Not so much, really. I mean, we all kind of knew that. So that was the only reason that I put that in there. Because I thought that it was interesting that someone would think, well, a bunch of people are sitting around a table and what they're doing is they're saying, so what should we do a survey on this week?
No, here's what I'm thinking is that some people like the idea that, well, private charities and private groups, they can do these things more efficiently. And so we should don't have any agencies or government of any kind doing that. Let that private sector do it. And to the private sector's credit, by that I mean the charitable or the volunteer. There was a how long ago was it? I'm trying to think of a calculation that was made about, okay, so when you think about the size of an economy, right?
Right.
The GDP basically.
Yeah.
And you calculate it in dollars. And somebody said, it's interesting because we're leaving out a lot of the economy. And so they did some other estimates about what's the size of the volunteer economy. How many,
right?
If you could put a dollar value on it, how much good is being done outside of the pay for work scheme. And it turns out that the volunteer economy is huge. So, but you're right. It's not represented evenly. People can say it's a great thing, but it probably follows. You've heard people talk about the Pareto principle, right?
Right.
20% of the people are doing 80% of everything,
right?
More or less. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly, 20% of the people who say volunteering is great are actually getting out there, doing it, maybe doing it more than once, making it part of their regular life.
Yeah. I didn't instantly find numbers that could represent that, but it has a name. It turns out it's called in economic theory, it's called the third sector.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So
so tell me what you think about the Mayflower Church.
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome considering how unlikely it is for something like that to work out. I mean, and of course, it could be that there are lots of other congregations. I couldn't find anybody talking about other congregations from China or anywhere in Asia making it to the United States. I just couldn't find them. So when I saw this, and a lot of it was translated out of other languages,
right.
Thai and stuff like that. So I did the best I could to put the story together. Obviously, there's some jumps in the story there, but it is a fact that congregation got off of an airplane in Dallas, Texas, and was met with a bunch of Christians who were more than happy to see him, and they were overwhelmed by it. And I wish I could find video. It probably is video. It's probably all social media, because this is not something that would run on CNN. This just wouldn't want to tell us about how Chinese Christians came to the United States to plant a church. I mean, that's not why they came, but that's in effect what happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could look at it as this is where this is where they were offered refuge. That's really, it's refuge to those who are oppressed. That's how the story ought to be thought of.
Yeah.
And God moves people, even governments sometimes, to do the right thing. So,
yeah. Well, I'm
surprised that it's Dallas and not somewhere in Massachusetts, say like maybe Plymouth Rock.
Well, that would have been nice, but I'm sure that they're perfectly happy where they are.
I'm sure they are too. I'm sure they are too.
I mean, they're all, I mean, if I were to put myself in their shoes, I would be amazed that I'm anywhere, but someplace where people want to arrest me. Yeah, that's really, really good. So I don't know. What do you want to, we got a couple of minutes here. Would you rather talk about Tina Turner, or would you rather talk about Ron DeSantis?
Oh, your pick. I mean, what I know about the DeSantis announcement was that there were, I would think Musk would be chagrined by this, but there were significant technical difficulties in the way that went.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch it. I figured that if it would be like all these other ones, like if you really wanted to watch it, you could watch it after the fact. Watch it on demand. I haven't yet, but then again, I mean, this is like, hey, guess what? I'm running for president. What that means today means you're running for president. Other than that, like there's going to be all this jockeying for position and lots of elbowing, not literally, but, figuratively, politically speaking, there's going to be a lot of that going on, and you won't know much about, I mean, we know about Trump, but we don't know much about post-loss Trump, other than like he's still sort of bitter about it. Well, sort of. Yeah, right. That's an understatement. But as far as like, I mean, we know DeSantis here as like he's blusterous. He does get things done whenever there's a hurricane comes along. Gets in there, says we're building these bridges back. They did that pretty quick last year. When the one hurricane hit really hard and there were bridges knocked out, and they had them back up in 5 days, I believe. And that was basically him and his team saying, this has got to happen, because we just can't have it be, that there are mistakes that are made and you don't want to make them again. We get enough hurricanes to where that's not what we want. So that is true. As far as it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very different, I think, than it was in 2016, though. Because people keep saying that like Trump will suck all the air out of the room. Oh no, DeSantis tends to suck the air out of a room too. So it might be a little different this time. Might be.
Most of the pundits say that the broader the field, the more it helps the front runner.
Right.
So, the fact that you've got now you've got a number of names that people have put in thrown their hat into the ring, and I imagine that the Iowa caucuses are going to be very telling as far as who really has a chance. So
right. Okay, so by chance, that's a bad segue, but I'm going to do it anyway. What are we going to do on the other side of the break?
Well, because we have the Feast of Pentecost coming up, I thought we would look at one of the accounts that it comes up as one of the readings, and it's an Old Testament account of when the Spirit was given to certain people in the context of Moses wants to get some additional help, because right now he's at the beginning, he's sort of the man, he's the guy doing it all, and there really needs to be more people so that he's not taking the heat for everything that happens, but he also has somebody to share the burden with. So.
Okay, so stick with us and we'll be back with more Radical Grace Radio in just a moment.